everybody, and yesterday was an off day. Today's a little bit of an on day, so I'm doing much better. Yay for me. Today we're going to talk about something really special. It's that time of year again, and we're all thinking about what we're going to be doing next year and making New Year's resolutions. But let's be really honest, how many of us actually follow through with those grand dreams that we dream this time of year? It's time to make our short list for 2025. And we're going to give you some fantastic tips to help you overcome and solve those problems that you face year after year, being faithful to that dreaded resolution list. Okay, so as you know, I have to put on my handy dandy glasses because even right up in my face, I cannot see the letters that I have written on this notebook at any place at all. Not even like right up here. Can't see it. I have to have my glasses. So, getting on with it, the issue is with making New Year's resolutions is that we hardly ever stick with any of these like goals that we make for ourselves for more than a few days, maybe one day, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, but ultimately we fail. Now, why do we fail? We have these grand and glorious hopes for doing something, actually accomplishing something grand and glorious that we want. Maybe you want to get another car, or maybe you want to lose weight, or you want to get healthy, or there's some other goal that you want to accomplish. And yet we set these goals and then they go crash. So why? Why do we do that every year? And then the rest of the year we just feel terrible about ourselves because I can never keep my New Year's resolutions. Well, I tell you why. It shouldn't be New Year resolutions. It should be by the end of the year resolution. You shouldn't set your goals like you're not going to get up on New Year's Day and suddenly have built all of these self-discipline and motivation and charged up ideas about life and just set out, going to the gym and doing all of that stuff and completely changing your diet. We humans, even neurotypical new humans, we're just not made that way. We grow and we achieve like moss, slowly, steadily, and beautifully. Beautifully, as Sean James Cameron says, beautiful. How do we change that? Well, you have to realize, like I just said, you're not going to get up on New Year's Day and just have all of this drive and determination and discipline and everything. It doesn't happen like that. One thing that I'm learning to be is a realist. There are things that it's the way you would like for it to be. It's the way you dream it should be. There's the way things should be. But how are they actually? Be a realist. But if you set your New Year's resolutions as by the end of the year resolutions, take some of the pressure off, I want to become this by the end of the year. And if you don't quite make it, then, maybe by the end of the next year, but that's too far down the road. So how do we get started on this end of the year resolution? Well, first off, decide what you want to do. Decide what your grand goals are. I'm going to tell a little story about me because, and I know you probably get tired of hearing about me, but I'm the only science project I have. So 2 years ago, when we came here, as I've told you, I was very, very sick, very, very ill. We had been homeless for over a year. I had just had major surgery. On top of that, the year before that, I had COVID that went into heart failure. It had went into heart failure. And I had no energy. I was suffering from swelling of the brain due to sepsis running through my body. And I had just had this major surgery when we landed here almost exactly 2 years ago. My heart was broken. My body was broken. Anxiety had such a grip on me. My anxiety had me to the point where I was broken out with chronic hives. I'm saying from here to here, all the way down my body to the tips of my toes. Chronic hives, and they did not go away. I was so itchy that I was literally wanting to rip the skin off. My agoraphobia was so bad, especially after being out there in the world, sleeping in a truck, having police officers shine the light in your eyes at 2 a.m. in the morning, and being told to go from this parking lot to that parking lot, and the whole fear factor, wondering if we were ever going to, come out of that hole, because being homeless is a deep, dark hole. You're just worried every day about surviving, much less making progress. So my agoraphobia was out the roof. I couldn't hardly bring myself to step out on the front steps because there were strangers everywhere. Well, if it hadn't been for my therapist that I got very soon after, I don't know how I would have managed. She has, and if you're listening, therapist, and I know you watch sometimes, you are amazing. I love you so much. You have saved my life. Always and forever, my gratitude. So, but I was so, even in the house, I had no safe space. I literally sat on a 3 foot by 3 foot square of the bed, and it took courage for me to even get up and go to the kitchen. And I managed one way, because I still had to take care of my guys. At that time, things were difficult because we didn't have anything. We moved in here without furniture, without dishes, without anything. But we still had to have some kind of food. So we did manage to get our food stamps and our Medicaid in the state, and we started with our therapist. The landlord here was so amazing because, we started paying him the monthly rent right away, but there was double the monthly rent for the deposit. He was so sweet about that, and allowed us to have time to get that money. So we did have help, and we have very considerate people. Even the man, I won't call his name, but if he ever watches this video, he'll know who he is. He was a trucker that we met in one of our stays as homeless people, and he directed us here because he knew we could get a start here, and I will forever be thankful to him for that. Now, this wasn't easy, but here I sat on the corner of my bed, broke out in hives, nearly having to be drug out of the house because my agoraphobia and my fear was huge. Not trusting anybody, so many wounds, so many scars from, everything that had happened. Here I sat. One of the first things my adorable, sweet, beautiful therapist said to me, because I walked in that room and she could tell I was an utter mess. I'm breaking in here right now just because I didn't finish what the therapist said to me. And what she said to me was, let's just not worry about anything else right now but your hives. We have to get that under control. Don't worry about anything. Put your grief off. Anything that's upsetting you, stop thinking about it. Go home, go to bed, rest until the hives are under control. A big mess. And I was broke out in hives so bad that one of the other therapists had actually refused to see me unless I had some kind of a release from a medical doctor to bring in, because I looked so bad and I was so broke out with hives. For all he knew, I had leprosy. I mean, I was bad. I didn't know how I was going to come out of it. And it's been a step-by-step process, but I'll tell you how I started. I started by saying to myself, what can I get up and do for 3 minutes that will make an impact? Because also the medications I was on for these chronic hives just made me sleep like the living dead. I mean, I would just be so knocked out for hours and hours. And Jamie and Joe were just so patient with me, because at that point in time it was just really bad. And so I would say, I'll get up and go use the bathroom. I go back to bed. Maybe an hour later, I would say, okay, what 3-minute task can I make myself get out of the bed to do now? So it might have been a cup of coffee, or it may have been frying some eggs for everybody, or scrambling some eggs. But about every, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour, I would say, what 3-minute task can I do? I remember the first time I did actually anything to clean, the table was completely covered with stuff. And I said, I'm going to clean off 1 square of the table. And I just kept doing that. And eventually, and there's a purpose for this story, but eventually I would get up to do a 3-minute task, and then I would realize that when that task went to something else and went to something else and went to something else until, I might have been up for 10 minutes. And then it grew from 10 minutes to maybe 15 minutes. And it wasn't the medicines that cured my hives. It was the doing, the staying active, the seeing progress. And then going to my therapist and talking out a few of the major things, and her giving me a few coping skills, just little by little, tiny little steps that I thought were never going to go anywhere. I had come from a fully functional, able to think, able to process, manage my own bank account, my own finances, manage my family, my household, take care of my family, buying and selling real estate, doing all of the things that a fully functioning human can do. I mean, I've always had autism. I've always had a little bit of ADHD. I've always had to have, methods to get to where I wanted to go, but I was fully functioning and my brain worked. And, then gradually that diminished, and it diminished down to the point where if I hadn't had Jamie to practically lead me by the hand, or Joe, oftentimes, I always held to somebody to walk into Walmart. And if I hadn't, I kept praying. I kept doing a lot of things. But I'm telling you that this was so minuscule. And now, after 2 years, I think after 1 year I had made a lot of progress. But now that it's 2 years down the road, I am almost, in some ways, I am better than I was before. I have grown so much. I have so much more knowledge. I have so much more discipline and control over my life, my emotions. Through all of the therapy and all of the study, I understand everything that's happened in my life, and I have understand how to deal with it. I no longer beat myself over the head, but I have learned to manage and understand and created more coping skills. We are to the point now where I feel like, wow, I am just ready to go to a whole new level of life that maybe I've never even known. And the reason that I tell this story is because you're just not going to wake up on January 1st and be that person you dream to be. Especially as neurodivergents, ADHD, highly sensitive people, you're going to have to work at this. But you can do it, because if I did it, anybody can do it. And if you are struggling, be sure to share your little bits, what you're struggling with, on our community tab. And maybe eventually we'll be able to have a community here where we can share with each other. But those little milestones are very important. One little success is so important. And, I don't want to get too emotional here, but if you're sitting on a street corner somewhere and you're cold and you've got a little sign and you've got a cup and you're collecting nickels or quarters or dollar bills just to go and have your breakfast, just to go have a little cup of coffee, you don't have to stay there. You can make steps going forward. And especially if you're a young person, don't give up. This area that you're in doesn't define you. It doesn't say anything about who you are, because from the time that you were a child, you've probably had all sorts of trials and tribulations, maybe abuses, maybe neglect. You have faced so much. So no matter how low you go, you don't have to stay there. And I can tell you this because I have come from nothing more times than you can ever imagine. Going on, it seems like I always have to have some kind of emotional thing. I don't mean for that to happen, but it does. So anyway, once you set your goals to be achieved by the end of the year, if you can at all, and now if you are in a place where you don't have a printer or computer, you may go to a library. That is especially for homeless people, or wherever you are. You may not have a printer and a computer of your own, but you can go to a library if you're in a town and go through. You might make an AI image on one of the image creators. You might scan through Pinterest. Whatever you need to do, I want you to try to create some sort of a visual. If you're wanting to have a new house or a new apartment by next year, or you're wanting to get a computer, then print off or come up with an image, a visual of what it is you're wanting. Because I don't know about you, but I am really connected to anything visual. If you can't print it off, find something on your cell phone that will represent it and make you a little Pinterest thing, or just save it to your Facebook, pin it to the top. Do something so that you have a visual image of what your goal is that you're going to go back to. If you can, either on your phone, on a notepad, or maybe you have a notebook and a pen, I want you to create like 4 big steps that are going to take you to where you want to go. Write down 4 sections that are steps, benchmarks to where you want to go. What can you do, and break it up if you can into like 4 sections. And then I want you to put some subcategories down there. Break each bigger task down into several smaller tasks. And another thing you might want to think about, especially if you have some of the issues like I have, and I have had, maybe you have health issues, think about even smaller things that maybe even unrelated to the goal, but you have to maintain every day, right? Before you can do anything else, you have to do your homework, you have to clean the house, you have to do laundry, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to call the electric company. Whatever it is, you're going to have your daily goals. But whenever possible, and I actually use clipboards for this, so I have big projects in the works, and I think I have like 10 clipboards. So I'll just write with a big marker so I can see it with my terrible eyes and say, call the lawyer about this, right? Call and search out for an accountant, or, you know, whatever it may be. Those are random, but you know what I'm saying. You can use clipboards. What I like to ask myself is, what can I do today? So what I like to do is ask myself, what can I do today to accomplish my goal by the end of the year? Breaking things down into smaller bite-sized tasks is really, really important, especially if you have health issues, if you have chronic pain, if you have ADHD and you can only remember to do little small bits, if your energy levels are just bottomed out all the time. Don't ever say to yourself, I can't do it. Don't ever minimize yourself to the point that you think, oh, this is hopeless, I can never accomplish this. Maybe you're a person that, you know, like you go to the grocery store and you come home and you sleep 4 hours because you're just completely and utterly exhausted. Don't beat yourself up for these things that hinder you. You have the fortitude, the strength. Yeah, I constantly have to work on my mental fortitude. I have to fight against depression, sadness, huge sadness, grief, remorse, regret, you name it. I have a laundry list, and you probably do too, because us humans don't fall far from the apple tree, that's for sure. Now, some of the helpful hints that I can give you, that I do, is I use apps on my phone. Actually, there's so much to be accomplished now, and I told my guys, I said, I feel like I'm fighting a war on 5 fronts, because you've got your health, you've got your financial, you've got your business building, you have, maintenance in life. And I said, I feel like I'm fighting a war on 5 fronts, and each one of those have your sections. So are you, in health, are you going to exercise? Are you going to change your diet? You got to do your doctor's appointments. You got your specialist appointments. You need to hydrate. You get to, and then, in the business building, that's multifaceted. Everything's multifaceted. So right now we have so much going on, and for my daily routine, I use Google Task. It's a free app. You can download it to your phone. I have downloaded also Speaky, which it's really handy. It will read off like Messenger. So, because I'm on Messenger a lot, but to minimize, I communicate with Jamie and Joe on Messenger off and on throughout the day, because we all have some nonverbal issues. Jamie and Joe have more nonverbal issues than I do, and rather than just stay on Messenger 24/7, we will actually communicate that way, because they can write their text better than they can try to come across with it. So if I'm sitting in a chair, or even in the middle of the night, if I'm laying in the bed and Joe sends me a text, or Jamie sends me a text, my phone's on, the Speaky app will actually read those to me. So it will say, Chris blah 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 has sent an attachment, or it will say, Joseph sent a message, and then it will read the message, or Jamie sent a message and it will read the message, and I'm laying there in bed. I don't even have to pick up my phone, because I would literally be staring at Messenger all day long at this point. So I'm on and off, but it's like a main communication hub for us. I downloaded Google Task, I downloaded Speaky, and the Speaky reads off my task to me. So if it's in the middle of the day and it's time for me to do a certain task, it will say, you know, especially if I had it set with a particular time, it will read it to me right before it needs to be done. There is some maintenance that's involved with this because occasionally the tasks change up and I have to change them a little bit. But it also reads my messenger to me, so I don't have to always pick up my phone and be looking at it. So Speaky is really good, free download on Google Play Store. I also free download AIPI because he helps me brainstorm everything. You can get tools free that will really, really help you, especially if you have ADHD and you can't remember what you're doing. The thing to remember when you're setting your goals or your New Year's resolutions, just change that mentality altogether. You're not going to turn over a new leaf. You're not going to be a new person on January 1st with all the discipline and all the motivation and all the get up and go you need. But by the end of 2025, you can be a brand new person. And if you get up one day and you have no motivation and you have no thrust, as they said on Chicken Run, if you have no thrust, and a lot of times I have no thrust, and all you can do is sit on the couch, or you wake up and you're sick, or you have other things that are coming against you, you know, one day lost, no big deal. You go back to it the next day. So get over your New Year's resolution and get on with your year-end resolutions, setting your goals and your task, and gently be gentle with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think about how horrible you've been for so many years. Start really small. Start tiny and, you know, take the steps that I told you, break it up into big chunks, and then break each one of those chunks up into smaller and smaller bite-sized, even 3-minute task. And if you have to watch this video a couple of times, it will up my views for sure. But I hope that this is like a huge inspiration to you of where you can go from here. You may not be starting at the bottom. You might have finances, but that doesn't mean that New Year's resolutions are going to work for you. I don't think they work for anybody. I think that's very minimal, the people that succeed with New Year's resolutions. But year-end resolutions open up a whole plethora of a beautiful advantage. This is a shorter video. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is my 5th Vlogmas. And while it doesn't seem exactly Christmassy, let's call this the Christmas shortlist. Writing down your goals. Do that before Christmas. Write down the goals that you want to accomplish for your year-end resolutions. I'm going to say goodbye until tomorrow, when we will have our 6th edition of Vlogmas, and I have no idea what it's going to be. Hopefully I'll have some good ideas come to my head. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye. See you tomorrow. That means I love all my children.